God bless everybody today. It's September 10th of 2020. This is a short video on a warning that I'm hoping doesn't happen. I know we're getting into those end days and things are moving quickly, but I found something that I think is extremely important. It was brought to my attention, but I wanted to bring it to your attention and you can discern whether I'm seeing something here or not. Um, you can always find my articles on my eschatology page at End of Day Survival, endofdaysurvival.com. It's got my full 117 step calendar, videos, articles, and different things about my teachings. I just did a video on the shofar blowing of on the Temple Mount on September 19th on Saturday. I just had posted a video on this, but I also opened my Bible and realized I found something that I think matters to this discussion, and I believe it's a warning from God to us, and I believe it will affect us on this potential blowing of this shofar on Saturday on the Sabbath, which is it's a restricted day to do this. This is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to blow the shofar on a sabbatical day, but they're going to blow it after 1,950 years. This will be the 70th blowing because it wasn't blown in 70 AD because of the destruction of the Second Temple. This horn will be blown or at least they're petitioning to blow it on Saturday, the 19th. But what I found I think is extremely important, and I wrote an article on my Facebook page about it at End of Days Survival. You can go see it there. It's probably the first article because it's the newest article on there. And I believe this is important. Okay, this is extremely important in what's coming up on Saturday. So I'll sort of read the article here and then I'll sort of walk through the passages. This is in Jeremiah 4, mainly from about verse 4 through 9. Okay, and what it's telling me is this, and maybe you'll interpret this differently, but this is how I interpret this based on the teachings that I've given you. So I'm just going to read this because I think it's important. I'll maybe add a little narrative to this conversation. So I believe Jeremiah 4 is coming, and this is a sign to the nations. Remember, Jeremiah was a prophet to the nations and the people. He wasn't a prophet to the Jews. He wasn't a prophet to the Gentiles. He was a prophet to the nations. And so his message were to the people in the nations of warnings of what's coming in end days. And so he's a latter-day prophet. This blowing of the shofar on this weekend is a warning. I've said in my last video that this shofar, this blowing on the potential, I believe they're going to blow this horn. And when they do, that's going to cause us problem. And like I say, I did a little video on my site about this. But what's going to happen here is look at the how he states this. And I put some notations here so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. So I'm telling you, this is a warning. Look at what he's saying. This is Jeremiah 4:4. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord, and take away the foreskins of your heart, ye men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Okay, we're talking about that UA treaty, and we're talking about this conglomeration of Jewish organizations that are petitioning to have the shofar blown on the 70th, start of the 70th week. before the 7-year tribulation period that I've talked about, and they're going to blow this on a sabbatical day, which is a no-no. You don't do this. This is against God's laws to blow this horn on a sabbatical day, okay? And so they're petitioning to blow this horn on a day that God tells them not to. And look what it's telling us here. Circumcise yourself to the Lord. Take away the foreskins of your heart, ye men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury, this is Jesus's fury, okay? This is not God's fury here. We're talking about that sixth seal fury of 6:16 in Revelation. He's going to destroy Gog. This is Jesus, the fury of the Lamb, the wrath of the Lamb. It's not the same as the 7 bowls in Revelation 15:1, as it tells you there. But look what it's telling us. Lest my fury come forth like fire. And we were talking about that destruction of Ezekiel 38:39 coming up in the next 3 to 4 years in 23-24. And the Daniel 8 effect that's coming up in the next year and a half with the destruction of Iran by Turkey. And then they're going to go through the Middle East, end up in Egypt, be pulled back between the 2 seas, and the 10 nations are going to end up in Israel by 23, beginning of 24, at least on that timeline that I've shown you so many times. God is going to place this judgment against the Gentiles and the Jews with the blowing of the shofar on this weekend. He is unleashing Erdogan Gog on the world. Now, I've said for a while, Erdogan is Gog of Ezekiel 38:39. He's a white horseman. He was unleashed on Yom Kippur of last year on October 9th of 2019, and that brought in the sorrows. And now we're in the sorrows. The sorrows are already being brought in, the seals are being broken. Erdogan is the first seal. The second seal, he's taking peace from the world. Look at all the rioting, all the different wars that are starting to break out. China's not getting along with anybody. There's so many different things going on here. So the peace is being taken away. Third horseman, what's that about? That's about famine, economic upheaval, and then we get into, get into that fourth seal where Erdogan Gog gets his crown and then brings a quarter of the world into war, the Middle East. But look at what he's saying. Okay, so he's talking about he's going to bring a judgment by fire that no one can quench against Judah and Jerusalem because of their evil doings. Well, what are their evil doings? They're not following the Torah. They're not following the Shemitah. They don't believe in the Son. They've thrown him away. They're not following God's commandments. So he's going to bring judgment. I've said that for a while. Joel 1 is a judgment of plagues. Joel 2 is a judgment of Gog against these nations of Israel. And so look at what's happening here. He is going to unleash his wrath in 6:16 on this country as Gog is attacking them. And I'm going to show you how this works. Declare ye in Judah and publish in Jerusalem. Well, it's been published. They're going to blow this trumpet. Okay? They're going to blow this trumpet. Blow ye the trumpet in the land. They're talking about this shofar. They are going to... Everybody says, well, are they going to blow it? Is this trumpet going to blow? Yes, I believe it will blow. And when it does, it tells us, based on this will be a curse. And I can tell you that because it tells us here in Jeremiah 4 that it is a curse. Declare in Judah and publish in Jerusalem and say, blow ye the trumpet in the land, the shofar, before the 70th week starts. Cry, gather together. All these assemblies are gathering together. Assemble yourself and let us go into the defensive cities. Okay, well, you're talking about Jerusalem, the defense city. They will blow the shofar on the 19th, on a Saturday, which is forbidden on the Sabbath. This should tell you something right there. It shouldn't happen. They should know better than this. That this trumpet will start a new cycle, that Shemitah 6-year cycle, to fully have the 3-year blessing. But now we're in the 6th year, or the last week, the 70th week in the 6th year of that Shemitah cycle, and they're going to blow this on that Shemitah cycle, and it's going to be a curse, okay? Because he tells us that, and as you're going to see that as we move through here. Set up the standard toward Zion, Israel. Retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north. Who? Gog of Ezekiel, and bring on great destruction. Against who? Israel and Judah. Okay, this is a 6-seal event coming up here. Once they get through and attack Daniel 8 in 2021, they're going to do the Daniel 8 effect. They're going to drive through the Middle East. They're going to get to Israel. They're going to hit that friction choke point. They're going to be brought back between the two seas by 23, 24, and then they're going to go into Israel. And I put that here. Erdogan will crush Iran by early 2022, first part of 2021, or the end of 2021, because I told you many times, if you go to that Ezekiel chart that I built for you, let me find it here real quick. This one here, we start that 2300 days from June 30th, from the time of the tabernacle, Feast of Tabernacles on October 17th. 2300 days back is June 30th. So that's when that 2300 day Daniel 8 effect starts. And that's what I'm talking about. He's blowing this thing and he's warning us that this is going to start to happen. And what's happening? You know what's really weird is the conversation right now is whether the trumpet's going to blow on the weekend of the 19th on Saturday and whether we're all going to be raptured away. Because they think that this is the pre-seals rapture coming. This is a huge conversation right now that the churches on the internet and everyone are having, whether they're going to be here after Saturday. And I keep telling them that they're going to be here for the next 7 years until the next Feast of Trumpets. As I've shown you on this list, the Feast of Trumpets on October 2nd and 3rd of 2027 will be when our Lord comes back, right before that parable of the fig tree ends of the strong generation, and that we will be then taken away, as Psalm 90:10 tells us, we'll fly away before that 80th generation. So is this a warning to the nations? Jeremiah was the prophet of the nations, okay? He was supposed to give the warnings to the people. And Jeremiah, in this book, Jeremiah 4, is telling us that he is going to bring destruction from the sounding of this trumpet. So if that's the case, and then we keep moving through here. So 6 tells us they're going to set up that standard towards Israel. And they're going to bring this evil army from the north with great destruction, which is Gog. And I showed you on that chart how this, and the time frame this is going to happen. Okay, right in here, before Antichrist comes up. And then we sign that covenant of death before 1260 days, the shortened second half, which is going to be the rapture on the Feast of Trumps. If you look at this thing, then look what he tells us in 7. The lion is come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on the way. Why? Why is he saying that? Because we're going to head into the signing and the trampling of the city for 1260 days. That's what he's telling you there. The Gentiles destroyer, the 1260 days will be then placed upon us, and he has gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate. What happens after the 1260 days? You have abomination. Okay? He's telling you there's a sequence of events here in Jeremiah 4. And that once he goes forth through this place and makes it desolate, that the cities will be laid waste without any inhabitants. Because why? A third of the Jews are dead on the ground from the plagues. A third of the Jews are dead from Gog's sword, as Ezekiel 5:12 tells us. And then the remnant flees for the 1260 days. So there's very few inhabitants of Jews or Christians, or especially Jews, left in this area. And then the Gentiles will, come over and start to exalt the Antichrist when he's resurrected and brought back forth as a dead Gog into Antichrist. And then look at this. For the gird of your sackcloth, lament and howl, for the fierce anger of the Lord is not turned back from us. We're talking about, Revelation 6:16 and the wrath of the Lamb, or the wrath of Jesus, not the wrath of God, which are the seven bowls, which is stated in Revelation 15:1. We're in Revelation 6:16. We're still in the sorrows here. The wrath of Jesus and the Lamb will be the one that destroys Gog up here. And this blowing of the shofar this weekend, I believe, will happen. This will unleash a wave of destruction on Israel and the Middle East, and it will start the buildup of the Daniel 8 effect that I've talked about. In June 30th of next year, we're going to start to see that 2300 days kick in, and we're going to start to see the Daniel 8 effect, the destruction of Israel, of Iran and the Kurds. Ottoman Empire rises. The Ottoman Emperor Erdogan will gain his crown as the new white horseman. He's given a crown. He doesn't start out with it. He's given this crown. When he destroys Iran, I'll guarantee you he will be given the crown of the Ottoman Empire, and he will be the leader of the Muslim 10 nations that end up doing Ezekiel 38:39 before his death on the sixth seal. They have that 7-month burial, the selection of 144,000, the silence of half an hour. We start that trumpet phase, and then we have this 10-nation destruction that forms into 4 regions. Antichrist, or the little horn, comes from one of those 4 regions. Once he's out and they realize he's supernatural, they'll concede, and that will then form into that 3 nations, the leopard, the lion, and the bear. This is important that we understand that this will be the diversified kingdom of the 3 prior kingdoms, past and new, as Daniel 2, 7, and 8 morphs into that. But I do believe this shofar will blow. They say there's not a reason for it not to blow. They say it's not a legal issue. There's 70 or so different organizations petitioning to have this happen. It hasn't been blown since the second temple was destroyed, and that's why it wasn't blown in 70 AD, and that's why the 70th week has a break, because now it is being blown. And that will take us into that last 7-year tribulation period that I've talked about here, and how we will see that rapture occur around the Feast of Trumpets on October 2nd and 3rd of 2027. And this is important. The rapture is not Saturday the 19th of this year. This is a warning for the shofar to blow. And Daniel 4 tells us that it is a warning to the nations, to Israel and to Judah, that he is going to come forth with fury like fire that no one can quench, because Jerusalem and the Jews have not done what they've been told for 6,000 years. They're not following the Torah, they're not following God's laws, they're not following the Shemitah, they're not following anything at this point. And half or more, actually 2/3 of them, based on Ezekiel 5:12, say they don't believe in Jesus as the Son. And then he's going to declare to both these places, Judah and Jerusalem, that when they blow this trumpet and they assemble, which they have here, once that happens, that they will enter that city, they will blow that horn, and from that we will then see a chain of events, which we're already starting to see, the seals being broke on Yom Kippur of last year when Erdogan invaded. This will set up the standard towards Israel, that they will end up by 2022 destroying Iran and the Kurds. By 23, 24, they will have 10 nations in Israel attacking them, and that the destroyer will then come upon the Gentiles for the 1260 days, that he will go forth and make the land desolate. Because what happens after the 1260 days? The two witnesses are destroyed, rise. We see desolation right prior to that. And then he's going to make waste of the land, and there won't be, he'll start to cleanse and purge the Christians. And at that point, we need to watch that sixth seal, because he's talking about that sackcloth darkness of the sun, and the two witnesses come out in the sackcloth and prophesy for 1260 days, and that he, the Lord's wrath, or the Lord's anger, the Lord's wrath, not God's wrath, the Lord's wrath, the Son, the Lamb, Jesus's wrath of 616 will destroy these armies up here. That's what he's telling me here. You may not believe that, but I believe that that blowing of that shofar on September 19th, Saturday, on a sabbatical day, which is an abomination in itself, should not happen. And that we will see then the Israel start to be placed under a curse. I've talked about that curse. If you go to my article that I just wrote about this, this warning to the nation of Israel, and how after this is probably a triple curse and not a triple blessing, because after 1950 years, actually 6,000 years or 2,000 years after Jesus has come back, however you want to look at that, the Jews haven't been following any of his commandments, the Torah or the Shemitah laws, and they don't believe in the Son, the only open door. And that's what this is about. Understanding the only open door is through the Lord. The narrow door is through Jesus. You have to believe in the Son to get to heaven. You can't be with the Creator without him. So if you haven't got right with God, you need to repent. You need to get right. You need to grovel. You need to lose your ego. You need to lose your material nature and realize that the only way to heaven is through the Lord Jesus. God bless everybody. I hope I'm wrong.